Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video is going to be super quick. We're just going to have a quick, it's like a small introduction about what we're going to be working on next in the next couple of tutorials. And this is like a prerequisite for the next series. The next series that I'm going to be producing is we're going to create an e-commerce type app, which we will going to be integrating into these into some APIs. So if I look at public APIs, GitHub, there's actually some open source APIs that we're going to use that will allow us to get a list of products, add them to a basket. We're going to be using this particular API, and we're also going to be using Realm to store our basket locally. So yeah, so it's going to be pretty cool. But as I say, this is a prerequisite because the UI that we're going to be building for this e-commerce app is going to be using texture. So I spoke about it briefly before in several of my previous videos. If you've not seen the previous videos, I'll put the link to the playlist in the description below. And that was just a small introduction to myself, to the channel, and help people get an understanding of how to build a very basic comic book app. But one of the things we are going to be looking at is this here. So there's on this public APIs page on GitHub, we're going to use the Best Buy API, which is free to sign up, and you get an API key, and it's very similar to the comic book app that we did previously. You just ask for an API key, tell them what you're going to use it for, and that is that. And the other good thing is that it supports HTTPS straight off the bat, which is what Marvel didn't do when requesting images from their back end. So but yeah, we're going to use the Best Buy API just to get the products, and then we're going to fake add them into our basket, but we'll be able to store them. So the main focus of the tutorial is how to store stuff offline in a database. We're going to be using an ORM style database. Realm is an ORM model, but I'll go into that more detail when we get around to doing that. But the whole purpose of today's and the next 2-3 videos is we're going to try and build out a Instagram UI very similar to this. And you could probably turn around and say, oh, there's loads of videos that do that, and yes, there is, I totally agree. But it's just to get you into or get people familiar with how you use texture. They've got some great documentation, don't get me wrong, but to put that into practice, and it's just to show you how easy and quickly and quicker you can build out UIs in comparison to UIKit. So you don't have to do the constraint stuff. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that I hate storyboards with an absolute passion. So using texture is an amazing alternative to using UIKit, because you could turn around and say, oh, let's use Swift UI, that's great, but what if you need to support older, like I've mentioned before, if you need to support older iOSs? You can't do that at the moment. Maybe in 2 or 3 years, when iOS 11 and 12 are no longer required, you can easily just go, I'll just build my new app straight out in Swift UI. And if the more I've done research on Swift UI, it's still extremely primitive. There's lots of things that are missing, and I spoke to several other iOS developers and they still prefer using UIKit over SwiftUI because of just how primitive it is, and it's not really pressure tested at the moment. No one's really come out. No one like Facebook or Netflix or any of those larger companies that have their own frameworks in place anyway, UI frameworks in place. None of them have come out and said, "Oh yes, with UI we've pressure tested it and it's amazing." Until that happens, I'm pretty reluctant to build a heavyweight app in SwiftUI. And you could turn around and say the apps that we're going to be building on the channel are really lightweight, and yes they are, I totally agree again, but the whole point of my channel is to help people get into the industry so that they can potentially build out a good portfolio of different size apps that have got a bit of whack behind them, and that you can say, actually I can build large scale apps if I needed to. So that's the whole point of the channel. There's lots of other channels out there you could go and watch, and they're much better than me, all day long. There's millions of iOS development channels out there that are 1,000 times better than me, and why would anyone stop here? That sort of thing. But I want to just teach other technologies other than SwiftUI, which everyone's doing. So, but anyway, kind of off on a tangent there. But yeah, we're going to build this Instagram clone using texture. And today's video is just about how to just brief overview of what texture is, who not owns it, but who open sourced it originally, and where it's at now, and is it still maintained, and we'll get it installed. We'll create a new project and just get it installed via CocoaPods. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of me talking and not a lot of coding, but yeah, we'll just get to that point, and then we'll start building out the UI and stuff like that. So what texture is, it's now called texture. It was formerly called AsyncDisplayKit, as it says at the top here. When it was AsyncDisplayKit, it was open sourced by Facebook, and Facebook kind of sunsetted it, and then Pinterest kind of picked up and has gone from there. And the whole point of it is that is pretty much what it says at the top here, keeps the most complex iOS user interfaces smooth and responsive. And people have pressure tested this because Pinterest use it, Facebook were using it, and you can really tell the difference between a texture app and a UIKit app. So if you're downloading data in the background and you're scrolling through a table view, you can see drop frames in UIKit. You don't see that in SwiftUI because of the way because they're using structs basically. You don't see that, but texture is tested to. If you trawl through their website, there's evidence there that you can. It's scrolling at 60 frames per second. Whether this has been pressure tested on the iPad Pro, which has got a higher frame rate. I don't know, but this has been around a little while, and yeah, there's lots of apps out there that do actually use it. So if we go to showcase, it might actually show us who. Yeah, so here you go. This is who currently are using texture. Slack also uses it as well for their iOS app, or they were using it for their iOS app. Whether they still do is another thing, but yeah, as you can see here, there's quite a few, especially these top ones. But yeah, it's a great framework. It's maintained well on GitHub as well. You can go and check that out. I'll put all the links to texture and their GitHub page and all this, that and the other in the description below. But yeah, have a read through the Docs website, and like I say, we're going to be building out this Instagram UI. Just create a little clone, just so that people are more familiar with what texture is. So yeah, some of the key differences. So node containers, an AS view controller is your standard UI view controller. AS table node and AS collection node is a table view and a collection view, and then the AS pager node is a UI paging view controller, and then you have your normal an AS text node is a label. The only thing that this lacks is a proper UI text view. There is a third-party plugin that you can get, which I've not used. But yeah, the AS editable text node is not. It's based off a UI text view. It's not the best when it comes to trying to make it look like a UI text field. But you can still add UIKit elements on top of the on top of texture. There's nothing to stop you from doing that. Yeah, so there's lots of really cool things here, and I strongly advise you have a little look through, especially around the layout spec stuff. So layout specs are you've got a stack layout which allows you to do horizontal and vertical, similar to the H and V stack in Swift UI. And then you have your background and overlay layout specs, which allow you to do like a Z stack type setup. Ratio layout is good for images. Ratio layout spec. So yeah, all of this here is kind of is the key. If I was going to say, look for all the documentation, obviously, but the key aspect is to read this and understand the layout specs, because they're like the main purpose of texture and making it super simple, as well as all the other benefits like the asynchronous stuff and the UI stuff done in the background, which UIKit can't offer. So yeah, with that me doing a lot of talking, let's create a quick project and just get it installed, and we'll just set up we'll just get the CocoaPod installed for today. But that's my overview of why I use texture, and also the company I work for, they use texture as well. And yeah, we found that part of our app is built in UIKit and part of our app is built in texture, and we have found that with constraints and stuff like that is we don't get the consistency in the UI, so there could be additional padding here and there, and whereas texture is always consistent, always consistent. But people could turn around and say, oh, that's because the constraints have not been set up or something like that. But even if you do set up constraints and use storyboards and stuff like that, if you need to dynamically show and hide stuff, you always normally get a little bit of weird spacing happening. But with texture, you just add the child or you don't. So if you needed to show, let's take the Instagram for example, if you needed to show like the amount of likes or the amount of views a particular video had, and that was like under the actual image itself. So let's go back to our example. So let's say this, can we zoom in? Yeah. So let's zoom in. So let's say this where you have your like button, your message button, and your share button, or send to another person button in your Instagram. So let's say this row, these buttons here, or this section here had to be dynamic. If you let's say if you didn't have a like, you didn't show it. Yeah. Now, in my experience, using constraints in UIKit, if that's not there, you might potentially get some weird padding happening, and some designers will like just go absolutely crazy because there's this weird is not consistent, and but with texture or with similar libraries, you can just say, oh, is the like count greater than 0? If yes, add that row. If not, don't add it. And we'll go into that in the next couple of videos about how to show and hide based on and you don't get any like hideous layout constraint warnings in the console, and the scrolling is really silky smooth. Is really smooth, and you can tell the difference between, like I said previously, you can tell the difference between a UIKit and and texture. Yeah, just a big fan of this framework. Anyway, let's quickly create an app. I said most of this video is going to be talking. So we're going to call this app InstaClone. Next, and we're going to put this on my desktop. Next. And then we're going to open up terminal, and my terminal I'm using is iTerm. If anyone's interested, I'll leave the link to that in the description below as well. So we're going to then do InstaClone, and then we're going to set up the pods for that. Have a window open with CocoaPods. So if you are brand new to CocoaPods and you've never don't know what the hell it is, CocoaPods is a dependency manager. So if you want cool third-party libraries that people have written, you can just download them rather than having to do all the manual process for the library linking and all that sort of stuff in Xcode. You can just use CocoaPods or Swift Package Manager to get these libraries. There's Carthage as well, which is another alternative. Unfortunately, Texture doesn't support Swift Package Manager at the moment. I don't know if they have any intentions to in the future, but at the moment they don't. It's either Carthage or CocoaPods. So like I say, if you're new to CocoaPods and you've never installed one, the first thing you'll need to do is in your terminal copy and paste this line in, and this is written in Ruby, so this will go away and get all the stuff that you install all the stuff that you need on your machine to install CocoaPods. So heading back to the terminal, I'm going to now run the command pod init, and that'll create a pod file in our InstaClone directory. So that's that done, and then if I do open like that, then open this file, it would have generated, get rid of that, it would have generated this file here. And then if we head on back to texture and installation, it says basically all I need to do is copy and paste that line into this text file, and then save that. And then back in the terminal, if I do pod install, it will go away and install all the relevant dependencies and any other third parties that the texture depends on as well. So the pin stuff is actually Pinterest dependencies. So yeah, that texture actually has a dependency on some Pinterest stuff, and that's pretty much it in regards to how to install texture. It's pretty simple, but now instead of having my code project open, I actually have to open this insta clone.workspace, or the .workspace file, whatever the name of your project is, .workspace. You have to open that, and then down the left hand side here you'll see this additional Xcode project that says pods, and that's where all your third-party libraries will be installed. So just quickly, in the scene delegate, I'm going to well, first of all, I'm going to delete storyboards because I hate them. So delete that. Then in the general, need to remove main interface. This app is going to only support portrait, and if I search for main in here, there's somewhere in the P list I need to remove main from as well. Done. Then in our scene delegate, we need to do window scene, and then here is going to be window equals UI window. If you've seen the first tutorial series that I've done, I did this in part 1. I think the video is called Generating UI with No Storyboards. I'll put the link, is popping above now if you want to go and watch that. So it's window scene equals window scene, like so, and then here I need to create our view controller equals view controller, initialize that, and we need to swap UIKit out to be AsyncDisplayKit. Although it's called texture, it was previously AsyncDisplayKit, and to change the name of the entire library would have been a nightmare for Pinterest, so they've just kept it as, I can imagine it would have been a nightmare. There's lots of files in there. It's not a small library, so they've just kept it as AsyncDisplayKit. And then here we're going to have our navigation bar, so it would be that navigation controller equals, and now instead of calling it UI navigation controller, we say AS navigation controller, and this is a subclass of UI navigation controller. So in here we say AS navigation controller, and our root view controller is view controller. Then here I need to say window dot root equals navigation controller, and then window dot make key invisible, and that's that done. Then in this we need to in our view controller we need to import AsyncDisplayKit and make this of type AS view controller, and then in here we need to do AS display node, which AS display node is basically a UI view, and then we need to get rid of the view did load stuff. We'll comment that out for now, don't need to get rid of it, and then do init that. It's not going to take any parameters, and then we'll just call super.init that, and then ASDisplay node, initialize a new display node. But just one last part of the video before we also include that. One last bit before I kind of stop the video, because that's a good kind of stopping point. I've done an overview of texture, which is what I wanted to do in my overview of texture. Go and read the documentation, just try and get a really good understanding of the layout specs, and then we'll kind of progress in the next couple of videos about how we create the Instagram clone. But before we finish the video today, I just want to create a new file, and it's going to be a base. We're going to call it base node. So base node, and this is going to be of type ASDisplay node. And this is called base node, and it's going to be a subclass of ASDisplay node. And then in here we're going to do our init, and we're going to override the init from ASDisplay node and call super.init, like so. But then we're going to do self dot automatically manage subnodes, and set that to true, because this is false by default. And basically what this does is you don't have to worry about doing self.node add subnode on every node that you create. So we're going to be creating cell nodes, we're going to be creating header nodes. So if we go back to our Instagram UI example, so this image here, so we're going to have our navigation bar by default, because we've initialized that in the scene delegate. But then this section here is going to be a collection node. We don't have to worry about saying collection node, self.node add subnode collection node. Don't have to worry about that, because we're going to inherit from our base node. All the cells, we won't have to worry about adding them, but they'll just get added automatically. This header node here, where your profile image and the name of the person and 3 dots, that will get automatically added. The only wherever we are a subclass of this base node will just automatically get added. So anything that's dynamic, we just don't inherit from that particular class, or we do, but then we can append to an AS layout array. So we either append to the array if a certain if condition is met, or we just don't append to that array. But we'll cover that in detail over the next 2 or 3 videos. But yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to get today. Let's swap devices to that and build and run. It should compile. It might take a little while on the first attempt, because it has to compile all the pod stuff, CocoaPod stuff. So I might speed this bit up of the video, because you don't want to sit here and watch this. Right, we're finally back. The project's compiled. It took a little bit of time to compile because of the amount of files that it's got to do in all the dependencies from CocoaPods. But with CocoaPods, when you compile it the first time, it kind of caches it, and that has benefits, and it can be kind of annoying, especially if you're updating. It kind of holds on to the previous versions a lot better, but there's ways and means of doing that, and there's using pod de-integrate and stuff like that, but that's outside the scope of this video. But yeah, so if we build and run this now, we will get a black background in the view controller and a white navigation bar. Just one other thing I wanted to point out is that on in texture, when you download texture from CocoaPods, you'll get heaps of warnings to do with a couple of the libraries that texture depends on. And just for this video, I've added this line to my pod file, which will then reduce the amount of warnings. It was like 120 something warnings, but I've added this line and it just drops those warnings off, and we only have the one, and that's to do with an iOS 13 thing that texture is probably going to update in the foreseeable future. But yeah, this here will fix those other 120 something warnings and stop them from appearing. But as you can see, getting back to the app, as you can see here, we have a black view controller and a white navigation bar. So just for now, just as we are here, I'm going to add a navigation. I'm going to add a title, so a navigation controller dot navigation item, that's optional, and then do title equals insta clone. And then in our view controller, we're just going to set the background to white, so that's going to be self.node. So whereas you would do self.view, if you're using UIKit, everything that you want to add to a view is a node. So you do self.node.background color or self.node add subnode. But because we've built this base node, we don't have to worry about adding to the subnodes. So we don't have to worry about adding to the node. It just does it automatically for us. So this is going to be background color, and then we need to do equals dot white, and then one other thing we need to change is this here to be our base node, and this here to be our base node. Oops. Base node like so, and this should go green in a minute. There you go. So yeah, that will just handle any nodes that we add to our view controller will be added automatically. We don't have to worry about it. But we're going to have the same setup as we did in the comic book app. We'll have a presentation layer, an interactor layer, and a data source. So it will be exactly the same. All our groups will be exactly the same. So for now, we will delete our viewDidLoad because we don't need it at the moment, because this initialize will handle all the bits that we need to handle. And then if we build and run that now, we should get a InstaClone title in the standard iOS font and white background. There you go, and that is a good point to stop in today's video. I know I said it was only going to be short, but I wanted to just voice some opinions and thoughts on and reasoning behind why we're going to make a InstaClone when there's lots of other ones out there. We won't have the back end side of it. We're not worried about that. We're just focusing on the UI because, like I've said, our e-commerce app that we're going to build and link up with the Best Buy APIs is going to be, all our UI stuff is going to be built in using what was AsyncDisplayKit. So yes, hopefully you have found some small pockets of value in today's video. I know there's been a lot of talking and I apologise for that, and not a lot of code, but now today's done and this video's out of the way, it'll be all code from now on, and a lot less talking, which is what I prefer doing. But anyway, I just wanted to say to all the people that have subscribed, thank you very, very much. It does mean a lot. I didn't even anticipate on me getting even one subscriber. I just thought I would just throw out videos and people would just watch. I wasn't. So the people that have subscribed, 29 currently, thank you very much for subscribing them, and the people that have watched the videos, I really appreciate it. Hopefully you found them useful, and then thank you, really appreciate it. If you're stopping here for the first time and you've not seen any of the other videos I've done, the playlist to that will be in the description below. I'm going to add a link to the cocopod.org so that you've got some docs on how to install from a CocoaPod. I'm going to add the texture website as well, and their GitHub link. Currently there's no code base, so this is not going to be on my GitHub page straight away, but once we've started adding some bits, I'll add the source code from this project to my GitHub so that anyone that's following along wants to download it and compare theirs to mine can do so. And that's about it for today. Please subscribe to the channel. If you've been following along to any of my videos and you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe. It means a lot and keeps me on the right track so that I know that I'm producing the stuff that people want to watch. And I'm on Instagram, that iOS developer. That's what I've named the channel. I've called it that iOS developer. I'm on Instagram. I'll put the link to my Instagram page in the description as well, so if you want to see the things that I'm kind of doing and code I'm writing and stuff and get a glimpse into what I do every day, then follow along. That's going to expand over time. It's only just kicked off, but we're getting there. Follow along, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.